My guest today on the Essential Coaching Skills podcast is Debra Russell. Debra is an old friend of mine, and she's also a master platinum partner coach for the Anthony Robbins companies. And I am so excited to have her here. She's a fascinating person. She's got a bullshit meter that's off the charts. And that's all I really need to say. Stand by. Here we go. You are listening to the Essential Coaching Skills podcast, a show devoted to uncovering the systems and the secrets that set the best apart, where you learn how to take your coaching clients to the next level, while you grow the coaching practice of your dreams. So sit back and relax, or sit up and get excited. Either way, you might want to pay attention. This could be important. Debra, it is so nice to see you again.
Hey, Doug, before we start, congratulations on all your podcasts, and you're going over 100 and all that good stuff. That's really impressive. I'm impressed anyway.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I believe this is number 118. I hope that means something very important numerologically, but
we'll make it up that it does.
Yes. Very, very important. Debra, so nice to see you. It's been a long time. Where are you?
I am in Westlake Village, California, which is about halfway between LA and Santa Barbara.
Oh, cool. Nice.
Yeah.
So north of LA.
Yes.
Nice. Very cool. My brother went to school in Santa Barbara. It's beautiful up there.
I lived in Santa Barbara before I came down here, and my daughter decided to finally start having children. So I followed behind them, and that's what brought me here.
Cool. How many children does she have? Three.
Three now.
Oh, you're a grandmother. Congratulations.
Definitely a grandma. They call me Gigi, that I made up, which stands for great grandmother, like awesome grandmother.
Yeah.
So I'm Gigi.
That's cool. You know, my brother recently became a grandfather, and he and his wife made up their names that they wanted to be called by the kid. And for some reason, my sister-in-law is being called Lolly.
Mm-hmm. Lolly. I've heard that one.
You have heard that one? And she wanted my brother to be called Pop, so they could be Lollipop.
I hadn't heard it that way before.
Yeah, he didn't want that, so he's I think he's grandfather or something like that. But anyway, I digress. So you probably are aware that this is called the Essential Coaching Skills podcast.
And that was important that we talk about names for grandparents in your coaching skills.
Yes, it's an essential coaching skill, yes. Really. If anyone wants to do well at coaching, they should make sure they know what their name is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Something like that.
We could get into a real thing, you and I can tell.
We could indeed. But let's avoid that.
Okay, let's do that.
And instead, but so Essential Coaching Skills podcast is about, what skills does a person who is out there as a coach or wanting to be a coach, perhaps, what's essential for them to know in order to do it well. And also, if possible, we could also get into what's essential for that said person to then make a living as a coach. How do they do that? Because it's a different question and a different answer, but really essential for somebody to know if they want to make a living. How do you do that? So that's kind of the basic theme of this broadcast. And yet, I don't care. I haven't seen you in such a long time, and people want to know. I think they want to know your story because it's a fascinating story. You are now a master platinum partner coach for Anthony Robbins coaching, which is probably as good as it gets, right? In that field for Anthony Robbins coaching, is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I met you many years ago when Tony was he was a kid, and literally we if we had 300 people at a seminar, it was like, wow, there are so many people here, and yet now it's like that's the people waiting in line for the restroom. I mean, that's nothing what he's got.
That is the number way. I thought of it that way, but that's true. And now because of everything that happened with COVID, and I've gone virtual, doing virtual events, which are phenomenal. He's having, 30, 40, 50,000 people from all over the world.
Yeah.
It's so amazing.
It is.
I love it. I'm so excited about that because his ability to reach a much greater, larger number of people it's exponentially grown.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. So tell me about you. How did you get involved with Tony?
Well, the very, very, very first time I ever heard Tony Robbins, I was watching TV and he was going to be doing a fire walk. And this was in 1986. He was going to be doing a fire walk in Los Angeles. And it was on a show called Eye on LA. And I just turned it off. I went, oh, good grief. Whatever. Who is that? At least this is what I said. At least that guy's making money. Those people are just stupid that are paying money to go.
They're paying money. Would you believe they're paying money for that?
I was a hairstylist in Upland, California, which is kind of out in the boons a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And my brother was a CEO of a company in Beverly Hills and lived in Bel Air and was, he's 7 years older than me and he was all super successful. And he calls me on Tuesday after I'd seen that. And he goes, guess what I did this weekend? And I'm like, what? He goes, I went and did a fire walk. And I went, oh, please, really, they got you. One of those kind of things.
Right.
And I was studying. I had gone to college. I didn't graduate from high school, but when I was 30, I decided to go to college, and I lied and said I'd graduate, and they let me in to a community college. And I was studying organizational communication, which is just, I don't know, it just seemed like something to do. And I'd done my pre-work, and I was going into organizational communication, and I'd just taken a couple of classes. And my brother's like, if you want to learn the state-of-the-art communication, you need to go to this event, that whole thing. Right?
Was he talking like that already?
He was talking like that. Yeah, he really was. Yeah. And so I finally went, well, I'll pick that. And so he wrote the name of the book down, Unlimited Power, which was Tony's first book. And I went and bought the book, and I read the foreword, and I went, I need to learn this. This is way better than what I'm learning at college.
Cool.
I want to know this.
Wow.
And so I signed up for the Firewalk Seminar, a 4-day program, and it cost more than pretty much anything I'd spent money on except for maybe my car. I don't even think I'd ever spent that much on a sofa or anything else. And I was really intrigued. And I went back and kept doing events. And remember certification?
I do remember it well.
Well, the whole time I was at certification, I just kept going, that man needs a decent haircut. I need to somehow help him.
It's so interesting, the different filters we bring to things.
Oh my gosh, the whole time I was thinking it. And I was like, I wasn't like thinking I want to know Tony Robbins or anything like that. I was really sincerely thinking I need to help this poor guy with this bad haircut. So eventually I talked him into letting me cut his hair. It went on for a little while. And when I went to cut his hair, he made me come and watch someone else cut his hair so that I would cut it exactly the same way. But that was not the point. The point was to change it. I cut his hair for about 8 years. He never would let me change it.
That's hilarious.
I cut it every 2 weeks exactly the same, and it drove me crazy. So finally, I ended up coming into work as the first job I had at the company was the director of training. So it was when I first started being the director of training, and I was on the executive team and everything. And he called me one day wanting a haircut, and I was like, I don't have time for you. I have a job, Besides, you need to change your hairstyle. And I'm sick of it. And so and now he still blames me. He goes, Debra's the one who used to cut my hair that way.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. He does really and truly blame me for that. But I just was following. The main thing I would say back when I go back is the first real honest to goodness conversation I had with Tony. He said, what are your goals? And I said, oh, you do not want to hear my answer. And he goes, yes, I do. I definitely want to hear your answer. And I said, I don't really have goals. I said, I set little short-term things in front of me to move me forward. I said, but mostly what I do is anytime I'm at a fork in the road or a juncture, I just let myself be guided to what's right for me. And he said, me too. And I said in my head, bullshit, because he was Mr. Goals. And but that's really what I did back then. And then the last thing I said to him after that is I said, one of my main reasons for not having goals is that I feel like I'm going to be doing something bigger or different than what I know now. And I feel like any goals I would set would limit me because I just have this sense that there's something happening and something that's supposed to happen. And my mind and how I look at things is too small.
Hmm.
So I just leave it open.
Wow, that's really interesting.
And I realized that that was really what was my secret sauce back then because I didn't know more than that. I didn't, so, and I'm kind of I'm going to be 70 in January.
No
And
way.
I'm coming back full circle
Wow.
to really living more that way than the place in the middle where I got real focused in on, you know, me taking charge.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. You are a master platinum partner coach for Tony Robbins' organization.
Mhm.
What do you ask people about goals? I mean, do you have people set goals? I
We
mean,
do. You know what I try to do as a coach is see where people are and take them from where they are forward.
okay.
So some people are in total victim mode and just getting them to realize they do have some control, they do have some ability to direct their life and their focus and get somewhere, just starting there. And then other people I have that are very goal driven and that serves them right now, that's where they are. And if I'm trying to take them out of that, that just doesn't work,
Hmm.
right? So I stay with that. And then I have other clients that have accomplished so much already, and they kind of get to a point like, well, what else? What else? And I'm finding that taking them more into the more, I don't know, higher consciousness, spiritual realm
Mm-hmm.
is opening things up for them and getting them re-engaged in a whole new way. So it depends on where someone is. So I think one of the essential things is to be present with where someone is and what they're open to, how do I help support them in moving forward? But I'm not trying to take them from here to there just because I know that stuff. It'd be like I'm not trying to take somebody in 5th grade into PhD stuff.
Right. Right. Got it. So that's very interesting. And I think it brings us to that symbol that's behind you on the wall there. Um, could you describe what that is and how that
Well,
relates?
I was thinking of for my own coaching because I do my own coaching and workshops as well outside of Robbins, and I was thinking I heard a word that I really like called upgrowth,
Okay.
and I don't know, and it's an actual word in the dictionary, which I thought it was a made up word, but it's an actual word.
No, that's an actual word. I knew that word. Yeah.
Yeah, and I like that word. The forward motion, the upgrowth, and so I was just messing around, and that was a symbol I came up with
Oh,
to
yeah.
represent that.
Cool. So I know you don't operate out of the goal system, but is that the direction that you're moving into to sort of that more spiritual bent? I don't.
For me personally, yes, I am,
Okay.
and for some clients, yes, I am. Who are people who kind of that's more appealing to them, or that's what they're feeling like they want something different than what they've been doing.
Mhm.
And Tony is very, very spiritual as well. It's just that when he's working with a lot of people, he's going for mostly know what you want, make your plan, go after it. But he has a very strong spiritual bent as well. And I know that for himself, he's definitely exploring and doing a lot of things in that area. And I saw Oprah interviewed about 3 years ago, and the person said, "So, Oprah, what are your goals?" And she goes, "I don't have any goals." And he goes, "Oh, come on, you're Oprah. Of course you have goals." Because Oprah's been teaching goals forever as well, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And she said, "I'm practicing leaning into the dream life has for me."
Hmm.
And I think it is just a place beyond these like, goals. And at the same time, I don't want to minimize the value and importance of those, because had I not started to set some goals, I'm not sure, I don't know. It's a blend, it's a mix. I think being open, setting goals, as long as you're not so attached to them that you miss other important information or guidance.
Right. Do you remember, were you there when Kathy Buckley did her performances at certification?
Oh yeah, I mean, actually, I know someone who's working on a movie for her to create her life into a movie.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah,
Yeah, just
yeah, I love Kathy.
she was, just for the people that don't know who she is, for our listeners at home, she's a comedian and who's deaf. And she is in this amazing story. And Tony Robbins often brought comedians into the certification courses because they were very intense things. They were like 15 days. And if you've ever been to a Robbins event, it's like morning.
It's not an 8-hour day.
No, it is. It's an 8-hour morning, and then you have lunch, and then there's an 8-hour afternoon,
Yeah.
and then there's 8-hour evening. It's like, it's just really crazy. So it's an intense time. And so it'd be 14, 15 days of NLP, or soon to be NAC, and then other things. But nevertheless, at the time, he would break it up halfway through or so, 10 days in, he'd bring a comedian in and we just have a party night kind of thing. And very often they're amazing comedians. I mean, I think he had Richard Jenny at one of them. He had, I think one of the first ones, I don't think I was there. I wasn't there. It was Roseanne Barr was the first one he had.
Oh wow, I was
Amazing. No, that was before our time. But yeah, Kathy Bucky was one of the comedians that came. And then people started asking her questions. She just a little open mic thing. And suddenly she started telling her story, her life story. And it was gripping. It was absolutely gripping. And I think she is literally one of the best storytellers I've ever listened to.
I have never seen anyone who could do what she could do to this day, which is that she could make you laugh to your stomach hurt and you're crying. And that fast, she could turn you into actual crying.
Actual crying, like
and then turn you back to laughing again. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. But what's also cool about her storytelling is that she was crying herself, but she never lost a beat. She never missed a syllable. She was telling the story beautifully. And I've heard her tell it many times, and it's always a little bit different. She's like, telling a story of her life. And it's amazing story.
Well, she has a book, just in case anybody's interested.
What is it?
I hope I'm getting the title right, but I believe it is If You Could Hear What I See. Or it's either If You Could Hear What I See or If You Could See What I Hear. I'm not sure which, but I'll have to look it up.
Okay.
But Kathy Buckley.
But the reason I brought her up is because she had within that story, once she said the quote basically is if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
Yep. Yeah. And she's still living that. She's an amazing person. And there are a lot of different people that are talking about this sort of thing. And what's been interesting for me is that I've been coaching now for about 17 years. And before that, I was running around the world and doing events with Robbins and all of that. And then I left for a while and ran off to Argentina for 3 years and danced tango. And
what?
You did what?
You did what now? You went to Argentina and danced tango for 3 years?
Uh-huh.
Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, I finally left my job at Robbins as the general manager before what I do now, but I went in as the director of training, and then I became the general sales manager, and then I became the general manager of all the events, and I was the head trainer and right? And I was just like, I don't like my job. I really don't like this job. I don't want to do this. I don't know how I got into this anyway. And so I left, and I did a lot of things, out on my own, did business consulting and that kind of thing. But the day after I left, I said, I've always wanted to partner dance. And I saw this ad in the paper that was for Argentine tango, and I didn't even really know what that was, but I said, I'll go try that. So I go to this lesson in San Diego. I was living in San Diego. And I thought, well, this is kind of an interesting thing. So I walk up to this woman. I mean, I'm in pure Robbins mode, right? So I walk up to this woman that was teaching it. And I said, so how long is it going to take me to learn this dance? And she pats me. She like soothes me, you know. She pats me on the arm and she goes, oh, honey, a lifetime. And I went, and I literally felt myself breathe. You know, and I just went, wow, that sounds cool. And anyway, I started getting into tango, and so I took a trip and I stayed for 10 days, and then I really liked it. And then I went back a couple of times, then I went back for 2 weeks, and da 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 da. So I had moved to New York, and I was had a consulting project there. And I thought, well, before I go back to California, I'm going to go do 6 months in Argentina, work on my Spanish and dance tango. And I ended up staying 3 years. Go figure. Yeah. And it was just, I danced every day, every night.
Wow.
And it was wild. It was an amazing experience. But when I was going to come back, I was like, I don't want to travel anymore. And Robbins at that point had started a coaching department. So I was like, I'll do that when I could just do it from home. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 17 years.
Wow. And isn't there a factor that when you came back, they said, well, okay, but you have to start at the bottom rung kind of thing?
Yeah, that was really annoying. You know, I had personally, because we have the Unleash the Power Within 4-day program. We have that also as a video-based program that for a period of time, Tony had a franchise. And so I literally delivered about 50 of those. And so when I wanted to come back, because they had invited me to come originally when they started coaching department, but I was leaving for Argentina and I was like, nah. So when I came back, they went, well, we'll interview you to see if you can be a coach. I was like, okay. My ego was having some serious issues. And so then I interviewed and they said, okay, you've been accepted into the program, into the training program.
The training program, we're going to teach you how to.
So you have to come to a 5-day training, and then you have to do the 4-day Unleash the Power Within program. And then we'll decide whether or not we can accept you into coaching. And I was like, I mean, seriously, I had a really hard time with that. Yeah. Because it was a new team and they had started it, they had built up the coaching department. But I think it was great that I did that, because the truth is that I really had stepped out of it. And it was a really good, bringing me back in and re-engaging me and getting me out of my head and my ego and all of that crap that I was doing. So
go back to the fundamentals.
I fully engaged. I stayed open. I did the event like it was the first time I'd ever done it. I got so much out of it.
Good for you.
It was beautiful. I'm really glad they did it.
That's really great. And it reminds me of so many stories. One of that just popped into my brain is Jack Nicklaus would always go back every year. He was, I don't know if you know who he is. I think you probably do. He's the greatest golfer ever. He has won more Masters than anybody, even more than Tiger. Or though Tiger may not be finished yet, but nevertheless, so far he's won them more than anybody. He would go back to his teenage coach, when he was a teenager. Not that his coach was a teenager, but when he would go back to the guy that taught him how to play golf every year. Go back to Ohio and say, Jack, his teacher's name was also Jack. Jack, teach me how to play. I don't know how to play golf. Teach me how to play golf.
There's a book called Mastery by George Leonard.
Yeah.
Sure. And he talks about the beginner mind.
Exactly.
And he gives that example of this person who had a 5th degree black belt or whatever in his discipline. And he came to this program with a beginner's mind, and all the other because they all were masters at whatever they did. And the rest of them were like showing how good they were and what they could do. And after 4 or 5 days of that program, he blew everybody out of the water, and they thought he was a beginner, because he took on the beginner's mind. And I think we have to be conscious and aware to do that, because the temptation, I'll speak for myself, my temptation is to go into I know it.
Sure, of
And
course.
I think as a coach, one of the most essential skills is your own open mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And just last time I saw you, I believe, was in New York when you were living there, and you were doing trainings for a hospital, right, in Queens or
I did
something?
a lot of trainings for hospital. I used to call that program the breakthrough experience,
Right.
and I do the
Yeah.
board breaking with that.
Yeah, exactly.
I've taken
And
over like 5,000 people through board breaking
right.
over the years.
The reason I bring this up is because I was around when board breaking started in the Robbins room. In fact, I even have a photo of me with the guy that taught Tony how to do it back in like 1987 or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm breaking through the board. He's holding the board for me. It's a pretty cool picture, actually. But I've also done it for high school seniors. For 30 years, I did a high school camp, leadership camp, where I brought
That's
between
cool.
100 and 150 kids each summer through a board breaking, break through your fears
Mhm.
experience. It's very, very cool. It's called the RYLA, the Rotary Youth Leadership Award.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, it's very cool. But when I saw you do it in Queens that time, you invited me to come to one of your presentations. I said, "Holy shit, this is the way it's done." Oh my God.
What was different? What did you mean? What does that mean?
You're the epitome of congruence. I mean, you brought people through this thing, and you were just certain. You had this certainty that you can do this, and people like, yes, I can because she said so. It
No,
was
that really is a big part of it. And again, I would come back to essential coaching skills, is that you have to believe in people. You
yeah,
have to believe in them and get out of your own. This is part of what I'm working on a more spiritual level, is like, no, I wasn't even still realizing how much of my own stuff. Now in coaching, I think in coaching, I was doing a really pretty good job. And in those things of being in a flow energy,
hmm
just not me being in the way and my thoughts and all that kind of thing, but really, just being with people. But what's recently occurred, and I don't know if I think you might not had planned to get this info, but um, since I came back from Argentina, I just basically took a break from relationships. I was like, you know what? I need to just like be in my life. And so I haven't dated or been in, I was married 3 times. I got married the third time when I was 22 or 23 years old. So
Sorry.
my,
Time out. This this is yet another example where I've had to stop you from going right past something.
you're going to,
Your third marriage was when you were 23 years old? When was your first marriage?
16.
What?
16, the summer between 10th and 11th grade, and I was not pregnant, by the way. Everybody, of course, was waiting to see me be pregnant, but I was not pregnant. Um,
That's different. That's unusual.
well, I lived in Mississippi. I grew up in Mississippi. My
Oh,
parents got a divorce, and we moved to, my mother and I came to California that summer. And I was dating somebody who was 20. I was 16 when he was 20 in Mississippi. And I loved his family so much. And I really wasn't that thrilled with mine. So I was in California. It was the height of the, drugs and rock and roll and everybody I was
also
meeting,
known as the good old days.
the
Yes.
good old days sometimes called. And my boyfriend's little brother had muscular dystrophy and he died. He was 14.
Mhm.
And so when I found that out, I was like, I'm going back for the funeral. And my mother and everybody said no. And I said, either get me a plane ticket or I'm going to hitchhike. And they knew my personality. So they went, she means that. So better get her the ticket. And I got back there and I was just with my family. And I was like, I don't want to leave. I don't want to go back to California. So
Mhm.
I told my boyfriend we were getting married. And so I did.
Cool. And then so you entered junior year as a married woman.
Junior year, I was married.
Wow.
Yeah.
You continued through high school as a
I
married.
didn't finish. In the summer, I had one class that I could have taken in summer to graduate, and I was like, yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah. And by that point, I was pregnant because we'd been married for a little over a year at that point. And I'd just gotten pregnant, and he was in the service. He was in the Army because that was during Vietnam and all that.
Okay.
And he was stationed, and I wanted to go where he was, and I didn't want to, be bothered with school. So,
Right.
I
Okay.
didn't do it. And then we were together for 2 years, and then, it was a typical teenage romance, but we just happened to be married.
Right.
And when we broke up, I went back out to California. And I met the oh my gosh, like the total opposite type of person, California writer, da da da. Turned out he was a clinically diagnosed pathological liar, which I didn't find that out until after we were married and I was pregnant again. So now I'm on my second marriage, and that was a hard one. That was the first time I ever understood how people could stay in an abusive relationship, because I just couldn't understand how anybody could ever do that. So my empathy for that grew. It's my empathy for that has helped me help people.
Yeah.
And then I finally got up enough, whatever, just courage to break that off. And there was somebody I'd known since I was a kid, and he was in California, and I thought, well, I'm 19. I think at the time I was 20, 21, and I was like, nobody will ever love me again. I'm damaged goods.
Yes. Well, yeah, clearly.
I'm damaged goods. I have been married twice, have 2 kids. Nobody's good. And he knew me through all of that. And I thought that was a really safe bet, So I married him at 22 or 20. I don't know. I think I was 22. Might have been 21. Gosh, only knows. And I was with him for 10 years. And then I sat there one day and I went, I have just jumped out of the frying pan and into the fire my whole life. And I started really thinking about, what do I actually want?
Yeah.
What's important to me. And I went to a therapist because I was trying to decide to get the third divorce. And it was just, that was just such a big, because I wasn't angry. I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
anything. I just wanted to think about what I wanted. And I went to a therapist for a year with one outcome, which was to make a decision. And at the end of the year, she said, yeah, you just gonna have to make a decision. I don't know what else to tell you. So I was on my way home. Have you ever heard Tony talk about the rocking chair test?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he got that from me.
Oh, no way. Seriously.
Yeah, that's where it came from.
Tell that story real quick as a little adjunct.
Well, so I came home and I thought, I need a different perspective. I still need to make a decision. And there was a rocking chair sitting in my living room for when the kids were little, and they were older now. They were in their 10 and 12 or 13, whatever. And so I sat in the rocking chair and I literally started at my toes and I worked myself all the way up my body, and I pretended or did an improv exercise or whatever you want to call it, that I was 95 and I was going to die in 30 minutes. And it was totally okay. It was just time.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't freak me out or anything. And so I got myself really old and I was rocking, and I asked myself the question, what do I want to be feeling? Not what do I want people to write on my gravestone and all that stuff, right? What do I want to be feeling in these moments right before I go, right before I die? And the first thing that popped in my head is, I want to feel the way I feel at the end of my favorite ride at Disneyland, which back then they called those e-ticket rides.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got tickets, and they were the best rides in the park. And there were 5 of them. And I got so excited. Could I actually ever feel that way? And it popped me out of my thing I'd done. So I went back and did it again. And I asked the same question. And what popped in my head the second time was, I know what I don't want to be feeling. I don't want to be regretting. The worst thing I could think of at that moment would be, I wish I shoulda, coulda, what if.
Yeah.
And so then I took those two, and then Tony talks about your 2 main motivators of pain and pleasure. And I realized in that moment I had created the ultimate version of that for myself. So I took the situation I was in and I ran it through different scenarios to see, did any of them feel like e-ticket? Did any of them create regret? And It did. It just became super clear to me. And I made my decision right then. And I haven't ever looked back from that. But I told that story to Tony. And then when he came out with personal power tapes, I'm listening to him and he starts talking about it. And I'm like, dude. So I was on my way down to cut his hair. And I was like, hey, I was listening to your tapes. And hey, you were talking about the rocking chair test. And he's like, yeah. And I go, you know where you got that? And he went, let me clue you in. He's like, oh yeah, that's where I got that.
Yeah.
And it made me really happy. Actually, at first I was a little ticked. I'll be honest,
Sure.
in
No,
my ego, right?
Let me just tell
I
you real
didn't
quick. Everyone that I know that's worked for Tony for any length of time has a story just like that.
Has a story, and now I just laugh,
including myself. I've been there. I know that feeling exactly. It's like, you know where you got that from, right? No, where?
But you know what? I really, having been around him a lot, I really don't think he remembers.
Oh no, I completely agree.
He just assimilates so fast.
Yeah.
He assimilates things so fast, and it's not done out of maliciousness or anything. It's
completely
just like he's just thinking. He's just gone. He's already moved on to the next thing.
No, I agree.
But what was really beautiful about it, and I'm sure that you felt the same way at times, is that thing that I experienced and changed for me because he grabbed it so quickly. Thousands and hundreds of thousands of people have heard those tapes, and some of them have. I have a client right now who we were talking about rocking chair, and he goes, the rocking chair test that I heard on the personal power tapes changed my life with my wife. And I went, hey, your coach created that. But it's beautiful when something gets picked up and we're able to have something that we either we came up with, or maybe we even got it from somebody else.
Yeah, no doubt.
And we get to share it and put it out there in the world. But yeah, so anyway, I'm not even sure. The 3 marriages and all that stuff. That's where we were.
Yeah, and I would just like to point out how spiritual you are. I noticed before you said, "Gosh only knows how."
Well, kind of tamper it, but
Gosh, to heck.
It's the plan part. Going back to tell God your plan and make him laugh, right? And the thing that's really come back full circle to me is that I started thinking I knew how to direct my life. Right. And if I had been in that mode and not opened myself up to something bigger in the early days, there's no way I would have done all the things that I've done. No way. Because I would have not thought of that. I would not have set that goal. I do, though, think that sometimes if you do set these goals in front of you just to keep you moving forward, and you stay really open, not like grabby and attached to those goals, but open, as you're moving along, you see things that you didn't see before.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not grabby and attached, you see those things, and that's where you can still be like, there's I believe, a way to blend those two. And but I've come back full circle for myself, because what had started happening, Doug, is at this particular stage of my life and everything, I've done everything I wanted to do. I mean, really, like, I've done everything I want to do and more and more and more. And I was starting to get in this feeling of like, what else? And when I would try to make up pictures or make up goals for, to compel myself forward, I was feeling like they didn't feel compelling. And I know what I started to say is that, so after 17 years of not dating, I decided, you know what, this year, I'm either going to have a boyfriend or I'm getting another dog. That's all there is to it. So I'm going to put myself out there again, because what I would do is about every 3 or 4 years, I'd go on Match or one of those, and I'd date like 2 people and go, And so I put this out there, and I met somebody right away, like within 2 days, that I really liked. And I mean, all my stuff started coming up.
Like, what do you mean? What stuff came up?
Everything that could possibly come up related to relationships, and all my stories and all my reasons not to, and what's wrong with them, and da 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 da, you know.
Got it.
And I recognized it, and I went, if there's ever going to be a chance for me to be in a relationship, I'm going to have to deal with this stuff. And I had read a book about 4 years ago called The Surrender Experiment. Michael Singer. He has 3 books. One is called The Untethered Soul. That was his first one. Then The Surrender Experiment. And now he has the latest book is called Living Untethered. And I thought, I better get back to The Surrender Experiment. So I read the new book, the Living Untethered book, or listened to it. And I have now listened to that 3 times in the last 3 months. And then I also, have you ever heard of Ho'oponopono? The ancient Hawaiian. Oh, you went small. I can hear
Yeah, I did.
that.
Thank you. Yes, I've heard that first.
And
Yeah.
I went to, Tony Robbins talks about it, but I thought I want to dig in deeper to that. So I really went and started studying Ho'oponopono. And between the two, the stuff I was learning with Michael Singer and Ho'oponopono, I literally was using it every single solitary day. Because both of them have an element of recognizing when you're getting triggered, recognizing when your energy flow is being disturbed. And Michael Singer talks about surrendering resistance. And when you surrender resistance, now you're available and open for spiritual, for guidance, for your higher consciousness, whatever you want to call it. And but you can't really feel that when you're when you're blocked. And so he calls them blockages. There's a Sanskrit word called samskaras that he uses, but that you notice it and you release whatever it is, and you don't even have to know what it is. You just know something is happening that's blocking you or that you're being triggered. And so I was using that, and then I went and studied, really delved into Ho'oponopono and started practicing. He has a different approach, but it's the same concept, which is that you're removing the blocks to guidance, not just to feel better, not just because, but so that you have more of a flow going. And because I was getting triggered like gazillion times a day, gazillion, by the way, is more than a million. I was getting triggered a lot. And so I just kept doing this over and over and over again. And it's been having this real impact for me. So I just started sharing it with a few of my clients, not everybody, just people I thought would be open to that. They were at a certain point in their life. And I am not exaggerating when I say that people are coming back, and I'm experiencing it too, with things that feel so in flow and so, almost miraculous. I know that's a extreme word, but kind of like that, like what? And just this kind of flow thing that's happening is super exciting. So I just felt like I need to talk about this with more people. So that's why I'm doing my little workshop that's coming up, a virtual workshop, that I'm calling Go Beyond. And it's just like, whatever's gotten you where you are, if you're ready for something else and you're open to something a little different and more in the spiritual realm, I'm bringing that more into play.
Got it.
It's always been there. It's just I don't know. It's changing dynamics for me.
Yeah. Well, gosh gives and gosh takes away. So,
I think we take away. Gosh just gives.
Gosh gives. Hey, but when is this workshop? You're doing a workshop when?
It's going to be the 4 Mondays in November at 9.
Oh, wow.
At 9 o'clock Pacific time, so noon your time.
9 o'clock at night.
For 1 hour. So it'll be four parts, 4 sessions.
What, 9 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock at night?
9 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, so
or noon Eastern.
Noon Eastern. Got it.
Yeah, and we can give them the website if they want to go.
Absolutely. We'll put it in the information below the video below.
I'm not sure how many essential skills I've given today, though.
Well, I think one of the main essential skills that you've excuse me, at least mentioned and alluded to, if not, said, do this, is that idea of not having an agenda, stepping into what I think Robert Dilts and Stephen Gilligan refer to as the coach state, where you're just kind of open, that beginner's mind. You do that in coaching. When you go into a coaching session with somebody, you don't have an agenda for them. You don't say, okay, I'm going to put them through my coaching program and move them out through this other end to become another little, graduate of the program. That you're open to what you're hearing, what you're getting from them. And so you're in that no mind state, that, the beginner's mind state, is just taking it in, and then finding and being ability to have that flow to go to where, help them get what they need in order to get to where they want to go. I think it's also really essential. One of the essential skills you alluded to and mentioned is that the idea of having a positive goal to aim towards, and also know why you don't want something at the same time. Very often in NLP, people come in and say, "Oh, I don't want to be depressed anymore." And you go, well, "Okay, well, what do you want?" I said, "I told you, I don't want to be depressed anymore." I said, "Well, that's what you don't want, but what do you want?" It's just, I think it's important to have both. I don't want to say it's not important to know what you don't want.
I
It
do.
is important to know what you don't want.
It can
And
inform what you do want.
Yeah.
Right?
It's both
Yeah.
of those things are,
Yeah.
I think, really important in anything.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah.
and just on that, coming back to the thing with from a coaching standpoint, I've also been really utilizing what I'm learning to release these, these blocks and triggers I've been getting with this context relationship. But I've been using it before I talk to clients, and I started with just using it before I talked to a client I was kind of struggling internally with.
Mhm.
And the first time I did it, I have a client that I've coached for a really long time, and I really wanted to support that person, and and I was always trying with her, and I started doing some of this work, and I just felt, just shut up. I mean, it didn't even come as a telling me. It just is. It's what I just did. I
Mm.
don't know any other way to say it, because I was out of my own way. And I just didn't say anything for really like 25 minutes. I didn't say anything. And after 25 minutes, she didn't even notice I wasn't saying anything.
Which maybe
Interesting.
the clues to how often.
and then and then it was just like, wow, I need to do something about this. Will you help me?
Nice.
And I went, wow. So I was just, I didn't realize how I thought I came to coaching with an open mind a lot. I thought, and I feel flow a lot when I'm coaching.
Mhm.
But I realized that there were some people that wasn't the case with. And now I'm not just doing that with a client that I feel like I'm feeling challenged with. Now I'm doing that with every client before, like I'm preparing myself. But really not just preparing myself in the idea of state, but preparing myself in the, if there is anything that's here, and I don't even know what it is, I'm asking to have that released. So I am open and I am available for whatever guidance I need to be with this person.
Yeah.
It's very fun. It's very interesting.
Oh, it is indeed. Yeah, and I think it's true that people, I've studied with a variety of different people over the years. Dave Dobson used to refer to, the higher power thing is basically, that's your other than conscious mind. It's
Mhm.
not some outside force or whatever. It's you. It's your other than conscious mind. But we still have to get our conscious minds out of the way and stop, putting on the goals from the outside or whatever it might be, being that we think should be the right thing or should be right, whatever. But just to get out of the way and say, yes, I would like to feel this at the end of my life, and what's going to help me to get there, and just sort of pose that as a question, then trust the feeling and follow that. And even Sigmund Freud basically said the same thing. I have a greeting card that I actually located recently. I thought I put it in this drawer. I was going to show it to you, but I don't. But it's a quote of Sigmund Freud that I'd had over my bulletin board for a lot of times when I actually had an office, which I I don't have any more in my house. But nevertheless, the quote basically says something to the gist of, for normal run-of-the-mill daily activities, he uses his rational mind to make decisions. Should I have a cheese sandwich or should I have a salad? Just rational stuff. He uses his conscious mind. But for the more big, important things in life, he trusts his, call it what you will, his
Yeah,
intuition.
that's what you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, trust his feelings, trust his other than conscious. And I thought that was like, holy crap, that's Sigmund Freud saying that, right? Mr. Analytical.
And even Einstein, I remember reading this story about Einstein had a meeting with some guy and he came to the house and Einstein's wife's like, I'm sorry, he's busy. You're going to have to wait a bit. And it goes on and on and on for like 2 hours or something. Finally, the guy goes, what is he doing? She goes, well, he's sitting in the bath playing with bubbles. And that's how he would release his conscious mind so he could be available and open to these ideas and thoughts.
Yeah. And frankly, that's kind of how he came up with like the theory of relativity and stuff. He was just contemplating, what would it be like to be riding on a beam of light? He just asked him and pondered open questions like that.
Questions. Yeah, and getting out of the way. So I would say, even for me, this is a really good example as well, is even though right now I'm excited about this work I'm doing, I'm not bringing that to my clients that are in major goal mode and trying to force that again, because that's not what we're talking about.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We got to stay out of the way.
That's
So,
beautiful.
I mean, if we can, that's the goal anyway.
Fantastic. Hey, Debra, I am so glad to reconnect with you and have you on this podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us.
You're welcome.
We'll definitely
do it.
put in the chats, the information for the course description of it below, how to get in touch with you for your training. If people want to get in touch with you just in general, is there a way for them to do that? Do you have a?
I mean, the easiest thing is my website. It's just debrarussell.com. Is my website.
What did you think of
that? And you can send me a message that way or anything like that. My email is debra@debrarussell.com. So you're always welcome to email me.
Simple enough.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And we did a pretty good job of not just going off and being crazy people. Although I am a crazy person and I do have yeah.
I was tempted a few times to pursue some of those.
It would have been so easy, wouldn't it have done? I gave you plenty of material for that.
Thank you very much. We'll have you back and we can do that again.
Okay.
All
right. And I just want to, I'd encourage everyone who's out there coaching is like, it's such a beautiful thing to be able to make that our living, make that what we do in life.
Yeah.
I think we're very lucky to be able to have that be how we make our living.
It's true. So true. Thank you. All right, good. See you.
Bye, everybody.
This has been the Essential Coaching Skills Podcast. Thank you for being here. It's a pleasure seeing you again. Hope to see you again real soon. Come back next week when we have another gripping and exciting episode of the Essential Coaching Skills Podcast. And if you want to, you can find out more about us, each and every one of us, at essentialcoachingskills.com. Thanks.